Okay, now let us start the topic. Today's topic is that the second part of our chapter, first one, that is reproduction lower and higher plants. Now the second topic is that, second part is that sexual reproduction. The first part, sexual reproduction, is completely over. Now, what is the meaning of sexual reproduction? Yesterday I told you that in sexual reproduction, you see two gametes are involved. This is one of the gamete. This is another gamete. So two different gametes are involved. And these two different gametes, when come together, when they fuse together, the fertilization is taking place, and that will result in the formation of zygote, which develops into a new individual. Since two individuals are involved, we can say sexual reproduction. Okay. Now you see, we are going to talk about the sexual reproduction there in plants. In plants. Now you see, this is the flower in plants. This kind of flower you can see there in angiosperms. That is why in one of the class I told you that when you talk about angiosperms, their asexual reproduction is there, that is vegetative mode, because the dominant mode of reproduction is that is sexual reproduction. So in all angiosperms normally we say as flowering plants. Why we say flowering plants? All the angiosperms are having specialized sex organ, and specialized shoot is there for the purpose of reproduction. Then specialized shoot we call as flower. Wherever you see the flower, we can say that flower bearing plant is an angiosperm, and that flower is a sexual reproductive organ. Okay, or that is for the purpose of sexual reproduction. So in all angiosperms, you can notice that there two different gametes are involved. Simply we can say one gamete belongs to male, the other gamete belongs to female. And when these two male and female gametes are fused, it will result into the formation of a zygote that will develop into the new individual. Okay, that is the beginning. So in all angiosperms, we can notice that the sexual reproduction is the dominant one. Now if you look at angiosperms, you can see that in angiosperms there are two phases. In all sexually reproducing angiosperms, all plants, there are two phases. One is known as the vegetative phase. Vegetative phase means this is the phase during which time the growth of the vegetative parts takes place. The growth of the vegetative parts means its root is growing, its stem is growing, its leaves are growing, but flowering is not taking place. And that particular stage of the angiosperm we can say as vegetative phase, or simply we can say that is the juvenile phase. But gradually the plants are growing up, and then it will enter into the second stage or second phase of their life, that is called the reproductive phase. So when they enter into the reproductive phase, they will start producing flowers. So you remember that in all angiosperm plants, there are two phases. One is the vegetative phase. During that phase, the vegetative parts of the plant body is growing up. That I don't want to go deep into it, because already you studied about this vegetative phase last year in morphology of plants. But when the juvenile stage is getting over, gradually they are producing the flowers. That is the beginning of their reproductive phase. So in the reproductive phase, what you can say, they produce the flowers. So flower bearing period is that stage is called as the reproductive phase. Now I want to tell you one thing. What is a flower? We simply say flower. We all like flower, and we like different types of flowers. Some flowers are very much attractive, some flowers are not attractive, but you like flowers. But you just tell me, what is a flower? Already the points are written there on the screen, so it is very easy for you to understand. What is a flower? In a very simple sense, we can say flower is nothing that is a modified shoot. Modified shoot मतलब उसमें एक स्टेम होगा, लीव्स होगा. मतलब आप एक प्लांट में देखोगे तो उसमें एक ब्रांच आप अगर देखा है, वो ब्रांच में कैसा है, उसमें स्टेम होता है, उसमें लीव्स होता है. That is what we call as a shoot. But when you talk about the flower, what is a flower? Flower is actually, that is basically, flower is a shoot which produces leaves on stem. But in this case, what you can say, the flower we can say this is a modified shoot. The flower is a modified shoot. So we can define like that. Flower is a modified shoot. For what purpose it has been modified? एक आई के लिए modify किया गया है. Okay. For what purpose it has been modified? It has been modified for the purpose of reproduction. Okay. Now you see that the flower is a modified shoot. For what purpose it has been modified? It is modified for the purpose of sexual reproduction. Now, second thing is that, now you see this is the vertical section of a flower. In this vertical section of flower, you can see that some organs are there. You know, this you can say, last year you studied about it. This is called calyx, which is, this is calyx, which is made up of sepals. And this colorful part we can say that is the corolla. That is made up of petals. And the calyx and corolla you studied in detail last year. But inside of that, you see something like this. This is what we call as androecium. This is called as the androecium. An extreme center, ab dekhiye kuch na kuch is there. So this is the central region. And in the center, there is a part which is called as gynoecium. So every flower you look at, each flower, that means different types of flower, no doubt. Unisexual flower is there, bisexual flower is there, and different nature you can see that. But basically, a flower, a complete flower is having 4 parts. A complete flower is having 4 parts. One is calyx, second is corolla, third one is androecium, and fourth one is the gynoecium. But I don't want to tell you anything about calyx and corolla right now because the part you have seen there in the last year. But what is gynoecium and androecium? And this androecium and gynoecium, we can say these are the 2 essential words. Essential words means without these words, the plants cannot reproduce. These 2 words are very much essential. And why this is very much essential? Because you know that in sexual reproduction, 2 different types of gametes to be produced. And these gametes can be produced by the specialized sex organs. These specialized sex organs, we can say nothing, that is the androecium and gynoecium. So since androecium and gynoecium, these 2 are there, we can say these are the 2 essential words. And these are most important. And so we can say a flower is producing always haploid gametes. अभी ये हैप्लोइड गैमेट्स के बारे में बात करेगा तो यू सी आपको ये मालूम होना चाहिए, ऑल्टरनेशन ऑफ जनरेशन आपने स्टडी किया लास्ट ईयर. ऑल्टरनेशन ऑफ जनरेशन में आपने देखा है देयर आर 2 phases. One is sporophytic generation, the other one is called gametophytic generation. The sporophytic generation produces the spore, and the gametophytic generation produces the, haploid. Sporophytic generation is there in diploid condition, and gametophytic state is there in the haploid condition. Now, what I want to tell you that all lower plants, आप देखे तो अभी algae, fungi, even bryophytes, सब आप देखेगा ना. So the dominant generation is always gametophytic. But when you come to angiosperm, the plant you see in your surrounding is the dominant one, and this is always a sporophyte. Sporophyte मतलब वो एक diploid है. उनका जो genetic constitution है diploid है. So what happens, just before producing the gametes, they have to produce they have to go for a particular type of cell division, which we call as the reduction division called meiosis. So there, in all sporophytic plants, in all angiosperms, we can say, before producing the gametes, the particular mother cell, they have to go for a particular type of cell division called reduction division, which we call as meiosis. And as a result of meiosis, haploid gametes are produced. So in this slide, you have seen this much, that a flower is a modified shoot. They are having various parts like the accessory whorls, calyx and corolla, and essential whorls, androecium and gynoecium. Then we have seen that in all angiosperms, the gametes are getting fused, the male and female gametes are getting fused, and thereby the sexual reproduction takes place. Then we have seen that in all angiosperms, there are two phases. There is a vegetative phase, and then there is a reproductive phase. And finally, we have seen that all these flowers are producing the gametes. Okay, and these gametes are haploid in nature. Okay, now I want to go to the next slide. Now we are going to see about the events in sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, what all events are taking place? अभी आप देखें तो आपको मालूम पड़ेगा, all the events are taking place there in a sequential order. We can see that in sexual reproduction there are certain events. What all events are there? You just look at them. All the events, especially in a sexual reproduction, if you talk about, you can see that there are two important events a flower is having. That means one is that produce the gametes. Second thing is that to confirm that it is going to be fertilized. Now you see, I'm just sending this message. I'm just taking the lecture. So two things I'm considering. One, I'm taking the lecture and you are getting it. So I can simply sit over here and I can deliver the lecture. So that is one aspect. But I am taking care of the second aspect also. What is that? I want to confirm that whether you are getting me, whether you are understanding me. So that is why I am using the chat box. So why I disappear for a second now? My chat box disappeared from here. So I want to take the chat box back. That is why I went for a time. Okay. That means same manner in sexual reproduction, in all the flower, one point is that one unwritten rule is that flower has to confirm two important things. One, they are producing the gametes. Second thing is that the produced gametes are going to be fertilized. But sexual reproduction, if you look at the sequence of events in sexual reproduction, if you look at, you can see that basically there are three sequences. Have you seen these sequences? They're on the screen. Please write Y if it is so. If you are not seeing, you please write no. Y if it is S, N if it is N, no. Okay, you are seeing it. Now you look at there. One after the other I will explain the things. Now you see the first most important event in sexual reproduction is that production of gametes. Now you see here, it is written there, gametogenesis. Gametogenesis. Genesis means what? Creation. Creation of gametes. So that is the most important events in case of sexual reproduction. The very first event. Gametes are produced. Then once the gametes are produced, all these gametes has to be transferred. I mean, for example, the male gametes are produced, female gametes are produced. Both male gametes and female gametes are not there at one particular place. And male gametes always going to female gametes. So the male gametes which are produced, that must be transferred to the female gamete for further reaction. So what is the second point? First point is that gametogenesis, and second thing is that those produced gametes must be transferred where it is required. Okay, and these events, I will tell you the name of these events later better. So now the gametes have been transferred. The male gametes are transferred to female. So now the male gametes and female gametes are come together. The next event is that it should go for union. Now it has to be fused. And fusion of these gametes we call syngamy. SY and syn means fusion, gami means gametes. So fusion of gametes, that is the third step. And once these gametes are fused, next point is then it will develop into a diploid zygote. And once this diploid zygote is formed, and this zygote is undergoing further changes to develop into the new individual, and that is what is called embryogenesis. So in sexual reproduction, 6 events you can notice. Then one is gametes formation, second is that gametes transfer, third is that fusion of gametes, fourth is that formation of diploid zygote, and fifth is that development of the adult one, that is embryogenesis. And all these various events you can categorize it into 3 headings. One is pre-fertilization, second is that fertilization, third one is that post-fertilization. Very simple to remember. You just remember PFP, pre-fertilization, F, that is fertilization, and then post-fertilization. Okay, you got it clearly. Now you look at the slide down. It is written that all the sexually reproducing organisms, meiosis is a must. That will result in the formation of haploid gametes. And these haploid gametes, the male and female gametes, must be fertilized. And when fertilization takes place, the diploid zygote is formed. And when diploid zygote is formed, that will undergo further changes, that is called embryogenesis, that results in the formation of offsprings which are not similar to their parents. They are dissimilar parents, we can say. Okay. Now you see the events in sexual reproduction. Basically, how many are there? How many steps are there? Basically, how many events are there? You please write the number in the chat box fast. You write fast. The main 3 events. No need to write the name. You just write the name. I already told you the answer also. Okay, leave it. Now you look at the point over here. In sexual reproduction, 3 stages I told you: pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. And what are the events in pre-fertilization? Look at them. In pre-fertilization, 2 events are there. 2 events are there in pre-fertilization. 2 events are there. That is called gametogenesis. Gametogenesis means formation of male gamete and female gamete. Then once these gametes are formed, it has to be transferred. That is what is called pollination. Pollen grains carries the male gamete are transferred to stigma, where the female gamete is located. That means the female gamete, that is the egg, that is located there in the ovule. So this transfer, that means gametogenesis and gamete transfer, these 2 events are there in pre-fertilization. Then comes fertilization. Fertilization is what? The fusion of those gametes. These transferred gametes are going to be fused, and that results in diploid zygote. But in angiosperm, you have to remember, we use the technical term there, double fertilization. Double fertilization means 2 male gametes are getting into female gametophyte, and there are 2 locations the 2 male gametes have been used. One is fusing with the egg, the other one is fusing with the secondary nucleus, that we will see later. But we call this fertilization as double fertilization because 2 times this fertilization occurs. And once the fertilization is over, the zygote is formed, and that is undergoing further changes as embryogenesis. And finally, we can notice that in case of angiosperms, the fruits have been developed in which the seeds are there. All of you are following me? You please write yes or no there in the chat box fast. All of you are following me? Yes or no? And no response from your side? Yes, yes. Okay. Now we have only 3 minutes in front of us. I already gave you the structure of the flower, but once again, we will see the points over here. From this part onwards, we will see tomorrow only 3 minutes in front of us. So now you see this is a flower. The structure of the flower already I gave a hint. That means each flower is having a calyx, a corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. Calyx and corolla, this we are calling as non-essential whorls or accessory whorls, because these are not involved in sexual reproduction. But these 2 whorls, this is the stamen, or this is collectively called as androecium. This is collectively called as gynoecium. This gynoecium and androecium, these two are very much essential, and these two are called as essential words. And these two essential words we are going to study in detail one after the other from tomorrow. Tomorrow we will see about the androecium. The androecium part we will complete tomorrow itself. So tomorrow we will start at 9 o'clock like this, and then we will complete androecium, then gynoecium, and slowly we will go ahead. I don't want to run very fast. Now 2 minutes are there. Okay, now we will review what we have seen today. We have seen today this much only today, what is sexual reproduction. And I will show you the slide once again if I'm going back. Okay, now we have seen this much. What is a flower in angiosperm fusion, how the sexual reproduction takes place, then how many phases are there, and what is the meaning of a flower, what are the different parts of flower, or what is the role of the flower and what it has to confirm. All these things we have seen. And then we have seen the events in sexual reproduction. Yeah, that means the fertilization, the middle part, and before that pre-fertilization, after that post-fertilization. In all the angiosperm plants, we can say the meiosis is taking place before the production of gametes, because all the angiosperms are sporophyte. And then we have seen this also in detail. And tomorrow we will start with this one. Okay, structure of the flower plus androecium. Okay. So this much already I told you. The flower is having two essential words, androecium, and second is gynoecium. The androecium is made up of the stamen, because this is a male reproductive structure, and the female reproductive structure is called as gynoecium, that is the carpet.